Hello and welcome to another session of Veeam User Group Cloud City. I'd like to introduce myself first. My name is Hin and I am a cloud solution architect at a service provider in Canada. I've been a Veeam legend for just over a year now, and I really love the community. There's so much knowledge and everyone is so willing to share. There's a saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that definitely applies to the Veeam community. Every time we get together, it's just amazing how much knowledge is shared and how willing everyone is to share that information. So just a little history, Cloud City was formed over a year ago with the goal of providing a place where people can discuss all of their experiences with all the different public clouds and SaaS offerings, and specifically to do with Veeam's products to protect those environments. And that leads us to today's topic, which is mastering multi-cloud management. And we have the pleasure of having Muhammad and Hin speak to us about his experiences with some of the benefits and challenges of working in and with the multi-cloud. So Muhammad, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Hen, and thanks for Cloud City for this opportunity. Actually, on overall, I'm now an head of IT at Primo. It's one of leaders in the fintech companies in Middle East. As a Veeam Vanguard, I have been almost 2 years now, but my contribution actually with Veeam are older than that. Since I started my contribution with Veeam since back to 2013. So I have a long history with Veeam. So in our topic today, it's actually a good choice. And thank you, Hen, again for taking me this opportunity to talk about this interesting topic. Actually, as a multi-cloud management, it's a common thing now, and I see lots of companies are already working with this approach already. So I promised you not to talk about my educational background, so I'll not talk about it. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So whenever you're ready, you can start.
Okay, so well, we're talking about today the multi-cloud and what some of the definitions of it. So I guess the first question I would ask you is, how would you define cloud? How would you decide to define cloud, and then the various aspects of cloud? Like, what's the difference between hybrid cloud, multi-cloud?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me start by showing you the agenda for today.
All right.
As you said, we are talking about the multi-cloud resilience, and you talked about the challenges and the strategies for adopting multi-cloud resilience, and also for the final thoughts, the best practices for implementing a multi-cloud approach. So back to your question, what is the multi-cloud environment? Let me start with a little bit story about my experience. Since I have been working for an organization that has its own data center, we can call it a private cloud. So as per the regulations, we wouldn't allow to move any single service to the cloud. That's fine, because I felt like I can control everything with superpowers, because I already built every single service. Sometimes, as a joke, actually, I injected some configuration files with my signatures just to prove my identity. So it's all mine. However, uh, that was a good plan for me. And for some time, I didn't see anything else outside my data center, because literally everything I need is implemented on-prem. Later on, I moved to a startup that has its own workload on a single cloud provider. Um, that was something like a different experience for me, but also was fine. I enjoyed playing with different kind of services and working on servers that weren't already in the next room. In this case, I also faced some challenges because, especially in security and also lack of experience. Like example, for example, in the network configuration, I had lots of struggle in this area. And the major challenge, of course, was the cost management. It's not your own data center after all. Uh, Moving on, I moved to a multi-region firm. Each region has, let's say, its own unique regulations and infrastructure. Uh, it was must to adapt the multi-cloud concept to work on them all seamlessly. Again, I was like, think like a puppet master, managing multi-environment, multi-cloud providers, multi-culture, and also multi-technologies. It seemed like a game in the first place, but struggles started to show up in the everyday tasks. So let's back on to your question. What is actually the multi-cloud environment? So I'll start by the definition. The term multi-cloud refers to the use of more than one cloud platform on a different level of services for different reasons. We can talk about the reason in details later. For example, the availability. In my case, I have an experience with this. Um, Egypt, for example, doesn't have any public cloud working in its region, unless Huawei just announced it last couple of days their existence. In this case, I have to mix between local cloud hosting and the services you are allowed to use from public cloud providers. So let's back to the next question. Isn't it pretty the same as hybrid cloud? Because there is a mix between hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. The answer is clearly no. If you are talking about the differences between cloud and hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, let's see again, by definition, using a single cloud is to use the services offered by the cloud provider, like SaaS applications, for example. And in the case of the hybrid cloud, we are talking about mixing your infrastructure between the on-prem data center and public cloud. It can be for different kind of reasons, like seamless workload or even for disaster recovery, for example. But in the case of multi-cloud, we are talking about the ability to use the most appropriate cloud services for each application from a bunch of public cloud providers like AWS and Azure, the GCP, Oracle, IBM. Like, for example, you prefer a kind of service from a public cloud provider and you prefer another service from another public cloud provider. Sometimes, in my case, I prefer EC2 instances from AWS over Azure virtual machines. This is actually, for example, because GPU powered instance, for instance. Maybe I can say I can use data analytics from GCP and so on. Okay, so moving on to another question. Why I need to move the multi-cloud environment? Actually, there is lots of reasons. If let's start with if you are read some articles about multi-cloud and its advantages, you will probably see the first reason is to avoid vendor lock-in. And what is this? This is to avoid being stuck in a single vendor or a single cloud provider. And instead, you will have the freedom to select the best provider for each workload. Uh, I have a good example, if you allowed me, Hen, to explain this in details. Okay, let's see an example of selecting the service from each platform. And again, this is my own opinion, and of course, based on my research. Uh, in my case, I prefer using EC2 instances from AWS, especially with ARM-based CPUs, which is called Graviton. It's designed to use lower energy compared to x86. This is, of course, if you are concerned with the green environment like I do. And also slow, it has lower cost per consumption. Actually, we are talking about maybe 30% lower in price than x86. While GCP, for example, has an edge in terms of data management and analytics. something like BigQuery is a powerful AI-ready data analytics platform. On the other hand, if we're talking about Azure, for organizations invested in Microsoft products, Azure offers seamless integration and migration between their on-prem data center and Azure as a public cloud. Azure actually always is a preferred choice for businesses with an on-prem infrastructure to use as a hybrid cloud. So this is an example of to avoid using a single service from single public cloud provider. So back in this list of reasons, sometimes you need to be paranoid about data loss. To go beyond by thinking, what if my data in a certain cloud provider is compromised or corrupted for any reason, or even I cannot access it? Okay, let's me. I'll talk about one of the situations happened here in Egypt also in back in 2011 during the revolution, where people everywhere in the streets, some organization lost already their access to their data. This is actually because they made their main and DR sites close to each other, and accidentally both of locations were inaccessible. So you lost all your data in a sudden place without any planning for retrieving this data. Another thing also is data sovereignty. It's also matters because of protecting individual rights. Like if we're talking about GDPR in Europe, for example, you have to comply with certain rules that also must be applied if you are going to use any public cloud providers. So this is for the reasons I can move to use multi-cloud environment in my organization. So the next slide, we can talk about the challenges. Okay, the one major challenge is the complexity. But from where complexity come from? Complexity comes from the need for interoperability, maybe for data synchronization and management experience across different platforms. It's a kind of easy to build an application on a single cloud platform. For example, if you are talking about building a simple web application on AWS services, like you can use AWS Amplify, for example, to develop maybe UI and some features like authentication and connected to data sources. This can be done with nearly no cloud expertise required. This is, of course, also with other services like RDS for databases and serverless compute service like Lambda. But imagine using a multi-cloud environment like your application based on Azure AKS and your data warehouse, for example, on GCP, like we said, and your compute instances on AWS for you are using the EC2 instances. It is happening actually on a multi-cloud environment already. Now we can talk about the integration between them all. Imagine that it's a little bit complicated. So back to the challenges. Now we can talk about security, risk, and compliance. Actually, in these days, security is a major concern in the technology world. You are going to apply all security measurements because sometimes you are afraid of getting compromised. You can apply the standards like PCI DSS if you are in the field of payments, or ISO, for example. This is, as we said, I am afraid of my data to be to get compromised in any way. So again, the solution is in public cloud itself, because public cloud providers offer you a guideline to help you maybe get the most out of the security precaution based on their standard and based on their best practices. Like, for example, AWS offer you something like Security Hub. Azure must, for example, Azure Defender for Cloud. All of these are precautions and guidelines you can work on to protect your data as much as you can. Also, another challenge, which is one of the big challenges, is data management. Data management is a big challenge when it comes to databases or data warehouses and data transfer. Imagine also working on a different platform with different types of databases. Lately, I have been in a project as a consultant to migrate databases from Oracle database to Postgres. I had to gather lots of information about, for example, database features in types of quantities and schema objects, database site code such as stored procedures, and also overall structure setup. Then I used all these data to calculate a migration complexity store. Sometimes it's risky to migrate data from database to database because you are uncertain of what's happening in this migration process. Um, it's actually risky, but businesses can tolerate this risk, but sometimes it's not. But in both cases, you must have a solid plan for this migration. And why exactly do you need to migrate your data from service to service, from database to another? So I'll move to one final challenge here, which are talking about the financial concern, which is the one major aspect. Actually, the common mistake here is let's move our workload on the cloud, and suddenly, bam, you are seeing the invoice with a shocking face. What is going on? What is happening in this invoice? So management here is to have all these concerns in hand, like searching for a tools to ease your forecasting for you and to know what is going on currently on your data center and what is going on in the future. Like cloud providers, for example, can help you optimize this cost with full visibility on your monthly usage and consumption. Again, for example, if we're talking about the tools that can help you in this financial concern, like AWS Cost Optimization Hub, and Azure also has an Azure Cost Optimization Service, and so on. This optimization process, regardless, of course, of the provider, is to reduce the overall cost associated with your usage by maybe pointing the solution to reduce the cost, like right sizing. For example, you can, for example, you are planning for a service and you can take lots of resources for expansion, and your plan for forecasting in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. But as per our consumption, it's not used already. So this is one can help you. It's called right sizing. AWS, for example, offered you something like instant reservation. Actually, Azure also has this feature as well, to save maybe the current instances as per the current situation for a long time, maybe from 1 year or to 3 years actually. So as a combination of the challenges that we face in the multi-cloud environment, so this graph shows you the combination of the challenges faced by enterprises and for small and medium business, for example, noting that sometimes lack of experience to handle day-to-day tasks on the multi-cloud environment can be a huge challenge. And it can cost you as well, because the cost here is not actually the money. It's an hours and effort done by your team to migrate and to maintain and to manage all your multi-cloud environment.
Yeah, so Muhammad, just quickly,
Yeah.
I found this slide very interesting because of number one, the first thing I saw was the number one for all businesses seems to be cloud spend. And also very high up on the list is the lack of resources or expertise. I kind of feel like the lack of expertise affects all of those things, like the financials and security. You need to know how to implement those things. So it's like security, compliance. They're slightly different when you're running in cloud environment, right? So in your experience, how are companies addressing that, the lack of expertise or resources?
Yeah, it's actually a good question. If, like you said, it's lack of resources can actually affect all of the challenges listed, because if your team, for example, doesn't have any information about how to manage the security concerns for day-to-day, like patching, like vulnerabilities, like ransomwares or whatever. This can cost you an effort to mitigate those security risks, and also can cost you money, because if you are losing your data for any kind of reason because of the security breaches, you are lost your business already. So actually, every aspect of these challenges has its own mitigation. If you are talking, for example, about the security, security awareness has to be done on an every level, not actually in the technical team. If you remember, most of the security breaches comes from people already doesn't know anything about the security or the technology as well. Maybe we are talking about the spam email comes to an HR team or the financial team and sales team. They are not aware of what's going on with this link. Is it valid to open it, or is it ransomware? They already don't know about it. So uh, as an example, we are talking about awareness in the security, and not explicitly for IT department, because they are they are already have something like basic awareness sessions, because they already deal with it in day-to-day tasks. But we can expand it to all organizations, because the security is not implemented for IT technical teams. This is one thing already. So if we are talking about lack of experience, for example, for managing multi-cloud, in most cases you can have a specific team for each cloud. If you are, like, if we are talking about Azure and AWS and GCP, for example, we can have a mix of people that you already can have basic information about one of the cloud providers, and on the other hand, they already have an extensive knowledge about another one, so they can complete each other to have an overall plan to manage them all. Is
Right.
that
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of cross training between the
yeah,
different providers, right?
yes,
So yeah, that's good.
okay. uh, so moving on to the key strategies for multi-cloud resilience. Here we can talk about one of the most key strategies for multi-cloud resilience is to have a robust backup solution that can operate seamlessly across different cloud environments. For example, if we are talking about Veeam as an example for uh, a data platform that offer huge landscape to manage almost all our workload in the one place. As you can see here, you can use it with different cloud providers like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Kubernetes. If we're talking about custom now, you can use it with the virtual and physical environments, even the applications like Active Directory and Exchange, and also databases like Oracle and Microsoft SQL, for example. And let's see here the full landscape that Veeam can protect from a single one platform. That's the kind of management you can expect when it comes to managing multi-cloud environment. That all what you need, all the management you need from different public cloud provider is in one place already. So moving on to the last final thoughts about the best practices for implementing multi-cloud resilience. Do you have any questions so far?
Well, I just wanted to go back a couple of slides to
Yeah, sure.
the summary of the Veeam data platform, and just
Yeah,
to point, if we go back one more, just to
this one.
point out the benefits of, oh, one more, yeah, just go back to the Veeam data platform one. We could just expand. I'd like to just expand on some of the parts, like so the recovery orchestrator, the Veeam product is actually Veeam Recovery Orchestrator, and it allows you to be able to coordinate your recoveries and your restores in the case of a disaster. In terms of monitoring and analytics, there's the Veeam One product.
One already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also for service providers, there's the Veeam Service Provider Console. And both of those integrate very well into all of the Veeam products and give you the ability to monitor and to report. Veeam, the Veeam service provider console also allows you to be able to control your backups and even to be able to push out updates and patches to those servers. Yeah, so I mean, basically, Veeam has all the different multi-cloud scenarios that you might have. It has it all covered in terms of all of those concerns that you have, that you mentioned in terms of protecting, to have a resilient solution for protecting your multi-cloud.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So back here to the best practices for about the implementing the multi-cloud resilience. What thoughts we can talk here about if you already have a multi-cloud environment? So let's start with regular testing and validation. Actually, in my case, I need to make sure that I have a validate to my setup in every way possible. I can talk about the integration between one multi-cloud to another. Documentation actually here is one thing that can save you if you already have a complex multi-cloud setup like I do, because sometimes you can find the best solution on what's going on with something happened in one public cloud, because it's not entirely in one public cloud, and actually because of integration of multiple cloud providers. So along with monitoring, just keeping an eye on everything from security to invoices, using maybe using some tools like reporting tools offered from any public cloud provider can help you, because you need to see and to monitor actually on a daily basis what is actually is going on from a perspective of technical and also from perspective of other things like financial. If we are talking also about that, migration always can happen in a dynamic environment. Maybe in the large organizations that already adopt multi-cloud environment, maybe they have a plan to migrate their workload from one of the cloud provider to another for any kind of reasons, maybe for better services or reachability or even for a cost optimization. So you can say that the migration always happens, and you need to be ready for any kind of those migration. So what you need here is the full data freedom to be able to work seamlessly across all the platforms offered. Yeah, back again to Veeam. If you are talking about data freedom here, Veeam is showing up with its data mobility. Veeam, for example, facilitates seamless data recovery and migration across different cloud providers with ultimate flexibility, with 100% software defined and hardware agnostic solutions. Uh, like uh, like we know about the Veeam aims also for data freedom is the data being easily transferable and accessible and also manageable across diverse of environments without any kind of boundaries. So do you have any question here? Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Okay. I guess this is it from my side. It was a quick one. What do you think?
Well, thank you, Muhammad, for that. I guess
Yeah.
we can open it up to any questions if anyone has any comments or questions for Muhammad. We could always go back to a slide if we need to clarify something.
It's either it's a good one or a bad one. So
questions.
Yeah,
I believe we have one
yeah,
hand raised
Okay.
from
yeah,
Mohammed.
sure.
Yeah.
If you have any
Actually, thank
question.
you guys. Yeah, I have a question. Thank you guys. It's a great pleasure to be with you, such public figures for when it comes to the cloud, such as Muhammad and Hin, and thank you for that, Chance. So I'm totally novice to the term of multi-cloud, and I'm just wondering about its strategy, and actually have two questions right here. First one, yeah, how does the leverage of the multi-cloud providers reduces the risk of single point of failure to improve overall the system uptime? As you know, I'm just relying on the AWS as my first cloud provider usage. So, what's the chances of the single point of failure when it comes when migrating to the multi-cloud strategies? That's my first question.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Sure, sure.
Mohammed.
Yeah, go on with your second question. We
Okay,
can. Yeah.
there's just one. The other one is what are the consideration and the challenges in maintaining the integration or the seamless integration you mentioned to manage the resources across more the platforms that I use or the cloud providers that I use, such as AWS and Azure and Google Cloud. These are my two concerns here.
Okay. Uh, okay. Let's start with your first question. If we are talking about single point of failure, if you are talking about using AWS, for example, um, in different cases, you can let's say your data on any cloud provider is your own data. This is your responsibility uh, to have kind of precautions to save your data. So you can't rely 100% on a single cloud in the terms of multi-cloud environment, because as I said in one of the slides, what if you can't access your data for any reason? Your data is corrupted for any reason. Maybe it's a common mistake, maybe it's for maintenance workload. So in many cases, and actually many organizations can adapt this situation. We can have our main site in one public cloud like AWS, and we have an disaster recovery site or secondary site on another public cloud. This is uh, can be a little bit costly, but this cost is just justified, because you can, yeah, by this cost you save your data, you save your workload, you save your availability. Like if the your workload happened and down for any reason on AWS, you can up and run your next site, for example. I guess this is
Yeah, it's totally
answered your
fine.
question. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
perfect.
So,
it's totally
so
fine.
my input in terms of that is that each of the cloud providers does have elements of to remove that single point of failure, right? Like you have concepts for regions and availability zones, so that your
Yeah,
data is spread out, so it's not in just one, I guess, data center, if you're going to call it that way. But to Mohammed's point, there is also, the added benefit of having your data maybe either replicated or spread out among multi-clouds, so that there was a famous thing in the news about a Google Cloud customer who had all their data accidentally removed, right? And so
yeah.
that's because
Yeah, I already have my data breached when it comes to the Google Cloud once a day. Already the data is totally lost.
Okay.
so that's the idea, right? The whole and to get back to Mohammed's point about security too, it's a different, it's a different model on the internet, also on in the cloud, because you have to maintain the security of your accounts, right? And their logins to your accounts, and that's one of the things that's more complicated. I find that IAM and identity management in the cloud can become a lot more complicated. So that's another area of sort of a single point of failure, right? If someone can compromise your root account, or an account that has authority to delete things, they can compromise your whole cloud environment. So. I don't know
Okay. You can back to your second question. You are talking
Yeah,
about
the second question, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the consideration or the challenges that in maintaining such an integration between the cloud providers or across the multiple platforms when it comes to the cloud. So how what is the challenges maybe appears when migrating to such a solution or such an approach?
Actually, the one major challenge here is to keep your configuration or to keep this migration plan is documented. In most cases, you are mixing with complex setup of integration between one cloud provider and another. But for some reasons, there is something happen in one of the cloud providers, and you are open the request for the support to investigate one more with you, and suddenly you discover that the problem is not in the cloud provider. Actually, the problem is the integration or the configuration you made for the integration between multiple cloud providers and multiple services. So, in my opinion, being all of these configuration documented can help you to identify quickly what's going on in such an integration between multiple cloud providers. So I guess this is
Yeah, that's satisfying.
yeah,
That's
yeah, okay,
satisfying.
perfect.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Mohammed.
perfect.
Thanks, Hen.
Thank you, thank you so much.
Mohammed. I guess while we're waiting to see if there's any more other questions, I just want to point out some of the links that we put on this slide here. The first one is the link to Mohammed's original blog that's on the Veeam website. It starts with a lot of the concepts that we've talked about here. He obviously expanded on a lot of them here, so I thank you for that, for taking your time to do that. The second link is a link to the actual Veeam Community Cloud City group, and it would be great if you guys could log on there and take a look at the content that's already in there. And if you have any ideas, just post some things, or even if you have some questions, put them in there. And there's a good community there that takes a look at that, and we'll answer your questions. The third link there is for the hands-on labs, and there's some really good ones in there. There's a couple in there for the AWS and the Azure products, as well as for the SaaS products like M365 and Salesforce. And there's also a really good hands-on lab for the recovery orchestrator in there. So you can just go in there and request a lab and to test out the products before using them in your environment. And the last one is many of the people in the community will actually be in Fort Lauderdale starting on Monday for the Veeam On conference, which happens every year. And this is actually the 10th year of Veeam On. And if you haven't signed up yet, please just click on there and either sign up there's a free virtual version, so you can actually see all the sessions. And if you can actually make it down, you can use that code there, community10, to get 10% off your registration. And hopefully, yeah, we can see some of you guys down there in Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, that's it for the links. Any other questions out there? I don't know, Mohammed, do you have any last comments?
No, I'm good so far. Yeah. If you have any question, I'm listening.
Yeah, we're both available in the community if you have any questions.
Sure.
But yeah, if you don't have any more questions, I guess we will end it a little bit early. But thank you.
Yeah.
I really want to thank Mohammed for taking the time out to present to us about multi-cloud management. And really appreciate all of the ideas and for you sharing your experience. And yeah, so that will be it for now. And so please just join us in the community and look out for the next event from Cloud City. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you
Thank you,
for
guys. Thank you, guys.